Hey, sports fans. This is Robert with WTP Sports Dudes. I wanted to come on today and talk about the Big 12 and the four teams that I believe are the top four teams in that conference. Well, really, the three top teams, and then I'm going to make Colorado the fourth team because I know that you would probably want to hear about Colorado more than whoever that fourth team might be, whether it be Texas Tech or Baylor or TCU or Arizona State. So I'm going to pick Colorado in that top four just so I can talk about it. So, of course, Colorado would be that fourth team. So Colorado has a 12-game season, regular season this year, and those games are the first game is at North Dakota State. Of course, they're going to beat North Dakota State. They got way too much talent to even be in a game with North Dakota State. So they're going to probably beat North Dakota State pretty handily. But their second game is at Nebraska. A game that I believe last year Nebraska should have won had they not had all of those turnovers and their defense got wore out because the offense could not play complementary football. But I believe this year that Colorado will lose to Nebraska, and Nebraska will beat them this year by a small margin, by a one score game. But I do believe that Nebraska will beat Colorado. The next game they play is at Colorado State. That's one of their in state rivalry games against Colorado State. And we know how well that game was last year. That thing went to what, 4 or 5 overtimes or something like that? That game was super exciting. And Colorado pulled it out at the end, which was kudos to them. And I think they went 4-0 at that point. This year, I think they'll beat Colorado State a little bit easier than they did last year. I think they'll win it in regulation, and they'll probably win it by 10 points or more. So I'm taking Colorado in that game. The next game is Colorado and Baylor. Now, I'm not sure what Aranda's going to be able to do with those Baylor Bears this year. But I know one thing. He better do better than he did last year and the year before that. Otherwise, Miranda's going to be on some other college team coaching their defense. Because if he doesn't get better on the offensive side of the ball and they score more points than they have the last 2 years, he's going to be at some other university coaching defense. So, Aranda, I hope you got your boys ready. I don't think they're ready for Colorado, and I believe Colorado will beat them by 3 points or less, probably on a last second field goal or last second extra point or something of that nature. The next game is against UCF. Listen, one of my elementary school students plays for UCF. He transferred from Cincinnati. Byron 3. That's my dude. I love Byron. And I hope that he does well at UCF. And I hope that UCF pulls out this win against Colorado. It's going to be a really good game. But I'm picking Colorado to win that game and also by a one score game. But I am rooting for my buddy, uh, Byron 3, in that game. He's played safety for UCF. So I'm rooting for you, bro. The next game is against Kansas State. And I'm telling you right now, Kansas State, man, they are a physical team in the Big 12. They always have a physical offensive line and a physical defensive line. And they just have a whole bunch of blue collar players on their team. And I think that blue collar mentality is going to go into Boulder, Colorado, and I believe they're going to beat Colorado, giving Colorado their second loss of the season. And I really believe that at this point, Colorado is going to start losing more games than they win this season. Their next game is against Arizona, at Arizona. Another game that I believe they're going to lose. but it's going to be a good close game. It's not going to be a blowout. It's not going to be a game where Arizona manhandles Colorado. It's going to be a good, hard fought battle, but I believe that Arizona will pull out the victory, and Colorado would have lost 2 games in a row. The next game is against Cincinnati. Man, I was hoping that this game was in Cincinnati so I could take that hour and 30-minute drive to Cincinnati from Columbus, Ohio to see my man Prime Time and the Colorado Buffaloes. But the game is in Boulder. So unfortunately, I ain't flying to Boulder and I ain't driving to Boulder. So I won't be watching that game in person, but I will watch it on TV if it gets some TV play. And I believe that Colorado is going to thump Cincinnati. Even though I believe Cincinnati needs to do some things in that university to get back on the winning side of it like they were when Finkel was their coach. I think they got some work to do, but I think they can get that thing rectified if they can start putting some pieces together. The next game is against Texas Tech at Texas Tech. Now, listen, I'm a Longhorns fan, and I know how difficult it is to go in Lubbock and win. Colorado, you're going to find out too how difficult it is to go into Lubbock and win because they're going to be out there screaming and yelling and throwing those tortillas or whatever it is they be throwing out there on the field, and they're going to give it to you, Colorado, and I think they're going to beat you by at least 1 score. The next game is against Utah. It's at home in Boulder, but that ain't going to matter because Utah's physicality is going to be too much for the Colorado Buffaloes. And I'm picking Utah to win that game by 2 scores. The next game is Kansas, another loss for the Colorado Buffaloes. I'm telling you, if Jaylon Daniels is healthy at this point in the season, Kansas is going to be a really good team if he is healthy and has not missed any games because they're a totally different team when Jaylon Daniels is at the quarterback. This guy is dynamic. And the offense that they run in Kansas, they can put up a lot of points because of his ability to run, pass, extend plays, run quarterback sneak, not sneak, but quarterback sweeps, things of that nature. But they got to keep him healthy. If they keep him healthy, they're going to be very good. And I got Kansas beating Colorado by at least 2 scores. And the last game on the Colorado Buffalo schedule is Oklahoma State. By this time, Colorado has played so many physical teams from the previous Big 12, with them being a newcomer, that they will get physically beat down by Oklahoma State. At this point, Ollie Gordon should be back and running at full steam. And with Ollie Gordon running at full steam, behind that incredible philosophy that Gundy has and that ability to coach in games like that, they're probably going to beat Colorado by 2 scores as well. And in the end, I got Colorado going 5-7. Not one of the top 4 teams in the Big 12, but I wanted to mention them anyway because of who they are and who coached them and the spotlight that they're in. The next team that I believe is the third best team in the Big 12 is Kansas. I'm telling y'all now, if Kansas can keep that quarterback healthy, they are going to win a lot of games. And they're going to be a thorn in people's side when they come to Lawrence, Kansas. If you got to travel to Lawrence, Kansas and play them with that unpredictable weather that they have, they are going to upset you if you are a higher ranked team than them because they really can get after it on the offensive side of the ball. Their first game is against Lindenwood. I almost said Lyndon McKinley because in Columbus, Ohio, we got a high school called Lyndon McKinley. And this Linwood team was probably the caliber of a high school team, Lyndon McKinley. And I think that Kansas will thump their skull and beat them by at least 30 points. The next game is at Illinois. I'm not sure about Illinois, man. They 1 minute they're decent, the next minute they can't win a game. I cannot understand how all that talent that is in the Midwest that they're not getting more of that talent. They're letting that talent get to Iowa, Wisconsin. You can't keep letting Iowa and Wisconsin get them players. Illinois, you got to get some of them players, man. And in this game, I think Kansas is going to beat them. It's going to be a good game, though, because I know that Illinois is going to be up for it at home. But I think Kansas pulls it out by at least one score. Their next game is at UNLV. I'm excited about this game because some of the former Texas players jumped in the portal and went to UNLV following Coach Choate, I believe his name. I think that's where he went to UNLV. I'm excited to see what those players are going to do at UNLV. I love all those former Texas players and I want to see them do well. And I think they made the best business decision for themselves. And I would like to see UNLV pull the upset, but I don't think so. So I think Kansas will beat them by at least two scores. The next game is at West Virginia. Now, listen, Coach Brown is going to bring a physical type of game, too. He's going to want to run that ball down your throat. So hopefully, Kansas can weather the storm in West Virginia. And they fans, man, I always wanted to go to a Texas and West Virginia game. But, man, I just didn't know how predictable their fans were going to be. They was just too unpredictable for me. And I wasn't taking no chances, so I didn't go. Even though they played West Virginia at West Virginia several times, but I never would go. But I wish I would have because a friend of mine graduated from West Virginia, and she told me you should have came to the game, especially when we played them at their homecoming. She said you should have came to the game. It would have been cool, but I didn't go. But I think West Virginia and the Kansas game will be good, but I think Kansas offense might be a little bit too much for West Virginia in that slow-paced game they like to play. The next game Kansas had is TCU. I'm not sure what TCU is looking like, but I do know they have some talent on their team, and they could possibly pull the upset. But I'm not picking them to pull the upset in this one. I got Kansas beating TCU. Their next game is at Arizona State. I'm thinking Arizona State is going to pull out this squeaky win by at least 3 points. It's in Arizona State, and I think that they're going to have a good enough defense because I believe old former defensive back coach is still there. I think he's still there at Arizona State. He's at Arizona or Arizona State, one of the two. And I think that they're going to pull out that victory because Arizona State had a pretty good defense last year. Their next game is at Houston, and I believe they're going to beat Houston, but it'll be a solid game. But I think they'll beat Houston because Houston's not ready for that unpredictable weather that you get in Kansas. Their next game is at Kansas State, an in-state rivalry game. And we all know how physical Kansas State is and how hard it is to win in Manhattan. And I believe that Kansas State will beat their little brother, football little brother, not basketball little brother, but their football little brother, Kansas, on that day. I believe Kansas State will win that game. Their next game is at Iowa State. And as a Texas fan, I used to hate playing Iowa State because them blue collar guys, you know what they used to say, 3 stars with a 5-star mentality or whatever they used to say about us. And they used to beat us quite a bit too. But I'm glad to say that we don't have to play them anymore because they always brought their A game whenever they played the Texas Longhorns, like everybody does. If you play in Texas, you bring in your A game. We're everybody's Super Bowl. Even the teams that are the best of the best, when you play Texas, you still see Texas as your Super Bowl. But I think that Iowa State will pull out that win over Kansas. No, no. I think Kansas is going to win that game. I'm going to take that back. I was giving you too much love, Iowa State. No, Kansas is going to beat you. So I'm taking Kansas in that one. I'm also taking Kansas to beat BYU at BYU. But Kansas, I'm going to tell you something about going up to BYU. The air is thin, brother. It's thin. And I'm telling you now, if you ain't physically ready in the right condition to get up there and play with them, they will take advantage of you in BYU. In Provo. They will take advantage of you in Provo, and you don't want that to happen. But I'm thinking Kansas is going to pull that win out too. So I'm picking Kansas because BYU's offense, man, it was horrible last year. It's probably going to be horrible again this year. The next team they play is Colorado, and we talked about that in the last part of this video. And Colorado is going to take an L to Kansas. And the last game they're going to play is against Baylor. And I believe they're going to beat Baylor. And that's probably going to be the nail in the coffin for Dave Aranda coaching the Baylor Bears. So if somebody out there is having some struggles defensively, Dave Aranda might be on the market. So you might want to call him up and see if he's interested in coaching your defense because he is a heck of a defensive coach. The second best team, I think, in the Big 12 is Oklahoma State. My biggest concern, though, with Oklahoma State is if Ollie Gordon has to sit out 4 games, those 4 games are against Arkansas, Tulsa, and Utah. They could easily lose 2 of those 4 games. Easily lose 2 of those 4 games. And you don't want to be, after 4 games, 2-2 at 500. You just don't want that to be the case. So hopefully Gundy has a way to figure this thing out so that they can win all 4 of those, or at least go 3-1. And I got them going 3-1 in those first 4 games, beating South Dakota State, beating Arkansas, beating Tulsa. But I do have them losing that 4th game to Utah. I also have them beating Kansas State at Kansas State, going into Manhattan. Now, Texas didn't used to own Kansas State in Manhattan, but the last 5 or 6 times they played them in Manhattan, yeah, Texas owned them. So hopefully Oklahoma State can do the same and beat them in Manhattan. I'm picking Oklahoma State to win that game against Kansas State. The next game they have is West Virginia. I'm picking them to beat West Virginia. Their next game is at BYU, Provo, where the air is light. Listen, Oklahoma State, by this time you should have Ollie Gordon rolling, and he should be steamrolling BYU to a 20-point or more victory. The next game is against Arizona State. And I got them pulling out the win against Arizona State because I think Ollie Gordon at this point is going to be on a mission. And he's going to make sure he's going after that Doak Walker Award. And possibly even getting to New York for the Heisman, which probably won't if he missed 4 games. The next game is at TCU. And I believe they're going to beat them at TCU. I believe they're going to beat Texas Tech. And I also believe they're going to beat Colorado. And I got Oklahoma State, if they can get past the hurdle of not having Ollie Gordon for 4 games, to 11-1. Because I think Gundy is just that good a coach. The man can coach some football. And he does not need 5 stars to be successful. He's done it with 2 and 3 stars. his whole career at Oklahoma State. The man can just flat out coach. The last team I want to talk about is the Utah Utes, who is coming from the Pac 12, who I believe is the most physical team in this conference. They're just going to bring a level of physicality that you only see in the Big Ten and the SEC. And I think that they're going to beat their first game against Southern Utah. They're going to smash them. I think they're also going to beat Baylor. Smash. They're also going to beat Utah State. Smash. They're also going to beat Oklahoma State in a thrilling win. But I think they're going to pull it out. They're also going to beat Arizona and Arizona State. They're also going to beat TCU and Houston. And they're also going to beat BYU. They're also going to beat Colorado, Iowa State, and UCF. They're going to go 12-0. Now, I told you earlier in both of those other videos that I don't think nobody's going undefeated in college football this year. I'm standing on that, but I just can't figure out who's going to pull the upset over Utah. So I'm going to pick them to win every game. Just like in the other video, I don't know who's going to beat Miami. I know they're going to lose a game, but I cannot determine who's going to pull the upset. Only one that I think can beat Miami is probably Florida State. Maybe Clemson. But in this division in the Big 12, I don't know who can beat Utah. I don't know who can do it. Oklahoma State, maybe. They don't play Kansas. So I think they're going to go 12-0 and win the Big 12. So that's my wrap up for the 4 top teams in the Big 12. And who I think is going to win it is going to be Utah, possibly playing Oklahoma State again for the second time in the Big 12 championship game. And out of one of those teams, one of them will get in. Maybe both of them if Utah goes 12-0 and Oklahoma State goes 11-1. They both might make the Big 12, the 12-team playoff. You know what's crazy about this thing, man? In all of these conferences, teams could possibly play each other 3 times. Regular season, if they meet in the regular season, if they're good enough to make it to the college football, to their conference championship, and then they could possibly meet again if they're good enough in the 12-team playoff. You got several conferences that can run into that scenario where teams can play each other 3 times in one season. It could definitely happen between Florida State and Miami. It could definitely happen between Florida State and Clemson. I'm just anxious to see how it's all going to play out. And I know it could possibly happen in the SEC with Texas and Georgia and Alabama and Georgia. I definitely can see it happening. But we have to wait and see. So without anything else I want to add to this video, I want to thank you again for supporting WTP Sports Dudes. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, please subscribe, please share our videos with your friends and family and ask them to support, because we really need as many people to subscribe as possible so we can grow the channel. Thanks again for tuning in. Hook 'em!